First, I have to say thank you so much for inviting me here. I feel like I've walked into a time capsule, and I'm just going, wow, with what I'm seeing. Look, I don't want to even describe what I'm seeing. Can you tell the folks out there, where am I and why we're seeing these amazing electronic devices from the past?
Well, right here in Toronto, you have the world's greatest television museum. It's called the MZ Television Museum and Archive, and here are the most valuable, the rarest, and the holiest relics of television, all in one place.
Now, when you say that, we're not kidding here. There are hundreds of different types of televisions. How did this whole thing come together, and why was it important to have something like this here in Toronto?
Well, Toronto has a video visionary named Moses Znaimer, who ran City TV and all kinds of other stations, and he loves television as much as anybody in the world, and he set off on a quest to find the most valuable, the rarest, and the most amazing televisions ever produced. And he has the very first television that was ever shown at the New York World's Fair, and he has all of these wonderful TV designs. He has work by both of the inventors of television, mechanical television, John Logie Baird, and electronic television, Philo Farnsworth. And they're all here in one room, and it is an amazing sight.
Now, you just mentioned about a name, because we were talking earlier before this interview. This individual is really the person who invented television. Tell me that story again, because it's an amazing story.
If you ask anybody who invented television, they're not really going to come up with an answer. You could say Alexander Graham Bell did the telephone and Thomas Edison with the light bulb, but television nobody really knows. But there is a story. Well, let me start over again. There are many right answers to the question, who invented television? But the best one, and the most exciting, is the true story of Philo Farnsworth. He was a 14-year-old farm boy plowing a field in Idaho, and he looked behind him at all the lines in the dirt, and he began to see pictures. And he thought to himself, if I could train an electron to do what my horse does and go to the end of the row and turn back, I could send pictures through the air. And he hadn't even been to high school yet.
Okay, I gotta stop you there. Who thinks of that? Especially if you've got a 14-year-old. Okay, 14-year-olds are still trying to put together their video games or something. How does a 14-year-old back then come up with an idea like this? This is insane.
Philo Farnsworth grew up in the Old West. No television, no computers, no radios, no telephones. They didn't even have indoor plumbing. His father drove a stagecoach. But what they had science fiction magazines about what the future would be. And in the future, there would be television. And he thought, well, how would that work? And there was a broken generator that he repaired, and he was generating electrons. And this boy at 12, really, moved into the world of the future.
Now, there are items here that shows the kind of work that he did. But as you said, he doesn't really get full credit for this.
This is the world premiere exhibition of the biography of Philo Farnsworth. It has the holiest relics of television are going to be here in Toronto for everybody to see. Now, that would include the plow that the 14-year-old was riding on when he looked in the dirt and came up with the idea for television. We have the very first electronic television camera ever made. We have his daily journals of invention, leading up to September 7th, 1927, when he writes with a shaking hand. The line picture was evident this time. He had invented television at 21.
But you said, though, he doesn't get full credit because something else happens.
Well, it isn't the happy ending that we would hope. The first man to file the patents is the first man to have his patents expire. And because World War II cut into the middle of the period of eligibility, his patents expired before we got television, and everyone could use his technology without paying him.
Incredible. Well, I'm actually happy that we have something like this in Toronto. Like, for example, what do we have here standing next to you? How does this represent the history of television?
This was probably the most innovative design of televisions. It was called the Philco Predicta, and it kind of looked like a giant eyeball. And the tube kind of floated above the rest of the set, and it would swivel. So anywhere you were in the room, you could watch the television. So it was a brand new innovative idea, and it might have been a success, except by the time it hit the marketplace, color arrived. And they couldn't make color tubes this thin. So basically, this was the end of black and white TV.
know, it reminds me something from War of the Worlds, though. But what other types of televisions do we have here? Because as you showed me on this one, we got wooden, we've got different sizes.
There were 2 television systems when it began. One was mechanical, using spinning wheels. Moses Znaimer in the MZ Museum has the world's greatest collection of mechanical televisions, followed by the world's greatest collection of electronic televisions. One had parts that moved, one had only electrons that moved. Obviously, the system with the least moving parts won the war. We have one amazing television here which actually belonged to the inventor of television. His name was Philo Farnsworth, and it was in his house, and he didn't like to watch TV. Even though he invented TV, he didn't like to watch TV, and he refused to let his kids watch TV. Then finally, on July 20th, 1969, he turned to his wife and he said, "Okay, you can turn the damn thing on." And they turn on the television, and the first thing they see, it says, "Live television pictures from the moon." And his wife turns to him. Now, Phil Farnsworth didn't make profit from his invention. He died bankrupt. He died heartbroken. His wife turns to him as they're watching television from the moon, and she says, "So Phil, was it all worth it?" And he says, "I think so. But up till this moment, I wasn't too sure."
Incredible.
His set is here. And we're running on it, the moon landing.
Oh, my goodness. That is cool. But I got to ask you, though, Moses, how does he go around the world to find all of these things? Because I'm not kidding when I say there are hundreds of different types of televisions, all different shapes, all different styles, all different. How do you find something like this? And also, how much is this whole exhibit worth?
I believe Moses' collection is worth $200 million. I believe the television behind you, which was the very first RCA that they featured at the World's Fair in 1939, is probably about a $5 million television. They had to make it out of clear lucite because everybody thought television was some kind of fake, and there were really little actors in there. So they had to make one that was clear to show, no, it's only electronics. He found it in Israel 40 years after it had been stored. How does he find this stuff? He's a genius.
So people should realize that opening this exhibit up, I mean, this is something rare, this is something special, and the fact that we have it here in Toronto even makes it all the better.
Well, there are things here that no one has ever seen before. This is actually the world premiere of what was in the inventor's basement. We went down and we saved everything and we salvaged it and we protected it, and now it's on display for the first time ever. No one has ever seen the first camera. No one has ever seen all of Dr. Farnsworth's journals and notes and drawings, but we have it all here. And we have an early television set of his. Philo Farnsworth invented 160 things. Television was just one of them. And we have a lot of his other inventions here to show, and we even tease his final invention, which was free unlimited energy for everyone on Earth by making a hydrogen fuser that everyone could have in their car and home.
What do you hope that folks will get when they come to this exhibit? I mean, for me, just for the amount of minutes that we're talking, the history lesson that I'm learning, I think, is absolutely amazing. What do you hope folks get from this?
My greatest wish is that some 14-year-old comes to see this exhibit, and he says to himself, maybe that crazy idea of mine isn't so crazy. This kid had an idea, it manifested itself, it changed the world. Maybe my idea is worth pursuing. If one kid pursues his dream and his vision and the world gets better, it was all worth it. And that's really what the exhibit's about.
So where exactly is this exhibit so we can get all these folks down here so they can be part of history?
Well, we're here at the MZ Museum in Liberty Village at 64 Jefferson Avenue, and this is the world's greatest collections of televisions. And starting on Saturday, we have a new exhibit featuring the life of Philo T. Farnsworth, the teenager who invented television. It's called Forgotten Genius, and everyone should come and enjoy this amazing story of a 14-year-old who changed the world with a big idea.
My friend, thank you so much for the invite. Thank you for the history lesson. You know what? When I turn on my TV today, I think I'm going to look at it just a little bit different.
All those lines that go across your TV were based on a horse in a field.
Thank you so much.